Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for logging on. I am just going to give everybody a few minutes to get situated and go and grab some coffee or water or a Red Bull, whatever you're feeling this morning. I'll just give you about 3 minutes to do so, and then we will come on back and start the wonderful presentation that we have today. But yeah, just a few minutes, grab some coffee, do what you got to do, and then I'll be back in about 3 minutes. All right, everybody. Hopefully you had a chance to grab some coffee and come on back. So thank you again so much for coming out to listen today. We're super excited. We have Chris Carrion, Solutions Engineer at Attack IQ, speaking to you today about operationalizing MITRE ATTCK. And Chris, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madison. Welcome everybody to this weekly demo session. As Madison said, my name is Chris Carrion, and I am a solutions engineer here at Attack IQ. So this is the agenda. I will take you through a demo in the platform, but what I really want to do here is kind of give you a little bit more knowledge about what the MITRE ATTCK framework is, how can you use it to address our problem, and what I mean by that is how can we use this framework to ramp up effectiveness of our security controls? How can we track threat actors and be able to align our defenses to counter those threats? So we're going to be talking about how to implement the MITRE ATTCK framework in a threat-informed defense approach. So I'll speak a little bit about that, and then we're going to put it all together. We're going to give you a simple workflow that involves kind of digging out specific MITRE ATTCK techniques as it pertains to your security posture, your operating environment. In this case, we're going to be testing T10003, which is a DC sync attack, and we're going to take it to the next level where we're going to be able to kind of implement the attack MITRE framework via the intrusion set workflow that I have for you. And we're going to be using the Navigator layers to compose a set of tactics and techniques, also known as an intrusion set, and test that as a way to more effectively gain visibility to the effectiveness of your controls. So a little bit about me. I am a solutions engineer here at Attack IQ with 18 years of experience in generally IT and cybersecurity, covering both commercial and DoD clients. I have a background in threat intelligence and it's a response as well as customer success. So I am a former Army active duty, and my favorite MITRE technique is T1003, which we'll be focusing on as an example in our demo. So kind of boiling down the problem here in the form of a question is, how do you assess the efficacy of your security controls right now? So do you do it manually, programmatically, and what is the scope, right? So we're going to be able to say in the end is that we're doing this continuously and at scale, whether that case is whether that is something that is currently happening in your organization or not. The MITRE ATT&CK framework is a good resource to leverage in order to get better at being able to see where your control gaps are and address those the security gaps, right? So a little bit more of the problem, let's talk confidence, right? This is not something that you want to answer to me, but it's something to think about. So, how confident are you in your security control effectiveness? So I like quizzes. So, just for your sake are you an A person? My stuff works all the time. Are you sure about that? B, did I do a pen test last year? So I think I'm good. C, my vendor said the product is solid. Maybe, but we still need to verify that. And then a D, I sure hope it works. And E, I'm not even want to know, right? So I doubt that all in this audience falls within, my stuff works all the time. Even the most, secure organizations have gaps that they need to address all the time. So we all fall in this spectrum. And the good news is, again, we can use available resources to align our defenses against, threats and commonly used tactics used to breach your organization. So it is a trap. Some sobering news here coming out from the Verizon's data breach investigation report. This is from 2021. I know the new one came out, so I'm still in the process of getting up to speed on the specific stats there. But it goes without saying that the last year's report reported that 82% of breaches should have been stopped with your current technology, right? Your current security controls, but we're not. There might be various reasons for this, intentional misconfigurations, configuration drift, updates, patches that may or may not introduce risk into your organization. And we also know that security controls fail often, right? Because this has some to do with the fact that your environment is dynamic. It changes all the time. It's not static. Security controls fail broadly, so it only takes essentially one update to create a multitude of security gaps, right? And finally, security controls fail silently. Most people have updates turn on automatically, and we don't know what the update entails, right? So we can see the log changes that happen for certain updates for certain technologies, but once they're implemented, we don't have full visibility of what could go wrong. So again, how do we address this problem, right? This large security gap that exists in our environment, and being able to tailor solutions in order to prevent potential security gaps, right? So first of all, we need a holistic repository of adversary TTPs, right? So we want to be able to have a lexicon of commonly used tactics, techniques, and procedures to be able to speak the same language across our security across our technologies, right? So a holistic repository. We also need a framework covering tactical objectives, right? So what is the adversary actually trying to accomplish? Is he trying to gain credential access? Is he trying to exfiltrate your sensitive data? So you want to be able to map those type of tactics against the framework, right? Again, we want to be able to align across organizations in this industries. So if a financial organization is, for example, a victim of a breach, we want to be able to take that taxonomy of what happened and be able to implement that in another peer organization, another financial company, for example, that could take those lessons of the specific tactics and techniques that were used to breach organization A and be able to use that on organization B in order to mitigate those threats. Now, the last thing is probably the most important here, the approach that you should take when implemented a framework, right? A way to kind of delineate specific tactics and techniques is that it has to be intelligence driven, right? We want to be able to understand attacker behavior in order to align our defenses to the threat. Again, this is visualized here by the misaligned bridge, where the attacker is going one direction and our defenses are slightly off, and that gives the opportunity of adversaries to be able to exploit that. And so you're exposed again, even though you're doing what you think you're supposed to be doing in order to be protecting your environment. Now, again, this leads to the main topic of our demo today here, which is the MITRE ATT&CK framework and how to operationalize that or implement it in your environment, right? So a little bit about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It is an invaluable resource that a lot of security research and companies use to track adversary behavior. So we can use this framework in order to map out these tactics and techniques that will give you a better picture where you should be deploying your defenses and tightening your security controls, right? It is recognized as an authority in understanding behaviors and techniques that hackers use against organizations today and in the future. So it kind of goes down all the way from tactics and all the way down to sub-tactics or sub-techniques, I should say. Now, as I said before about applying intelligence to your approach here is we need to be able to apply a threat-informed defense approach to our research, right? So if we're doing research about which threat actors, hackers, or threat groups are targeting my organization or my vertical, right? We can look at that information in all sorts of ways. Usually there's a lot of open source reporting that's out there, vendor analysis, malware analysis that's freely available in the internet, right? So use that, but also use as a starting point, the MITRE ATT&CK website. The MITRE ATT&CK website has a very rich information that is relevant to your vertical, your industry, that you can leverage right now. So, for example, when visiting the MITRE ATT&CK website, if you click on the groups and you do a search, you can see here highlighted on the description of APT29, which industries, regions, this threat actor is targeting, right? So government, consulting, technology, telecom, and other organizations. So, look up your industry vertical that maybe some other threat actors might be targeting. It's all different. APT20, the FIN4, FIN5, FIN6, and FIN7s, obviously those are focused on the financials, right? So a simple Control F find on that website will give you a pretty good idea of which threat actors are targeting which industries, and you can start that from that point, right? Furthermore, within the research that you're doing, you could very quickly pick up the techniques that are used. Again, these are the T codes that are found in the framework, which essentially are just technique IDs that you can use, whether that be maybe on a platform, maybe they're tagged somewhere else, or sometimes they're even tagged on threat research reports, right? Again, the MITRE ATT&CK framework is becoming more popular as a way for organizations to track threat actors across different industries and technologies. Kind of expanding on that, we can go all the way down to the tactic, technique, and sub-technique level. In this case, for example, I'm focused on OS credential dumping, right? DC sync types of attacks. Again, starting off on the MITRE ATT&CK website is a great start. And I would encourage you to look up the specific tactics and techniques leveraged by these threat actors, so you can be able to map not only which threat actors are targeting you or your organization or your peers, but which techniques and sub techniques are actually being leveraged by these threat actors, so you can map out a nice defense, right? You could see right here, APT29 again is using this technique, OS credential dumping, DC sync, in order to breach their victims, right? Specifically, this is a sub-technique called T1003.006, and you can see right here it affects Windows platforms. So what you want to also be able to map out the operating environment that you're currently using in your organization to the techniques that they're using. So for example, if a threat actor is using a certain technique that is only applicable to Mac OS or Linux, but you're a Windows shop, then it doesn't make sense to try to operationalize that technique against your environment because it does not apply. Another example here for you is the MITRE ATTCK Navigator. Again, this is a resource on their website that you can use to map a threat actor behavior to specific known techniques and tactics. As you can see, the highlighted boxes signify common techniques and behaviors as it pertains to threat actors, right? So these are all, could definitely differ from actor to actor. But the point here is you want to be able to use free resources in the internet, such as, again, the MITRE ATTCK website and research done by other companies and organizations to be able to map out these specific behaviors to techniques. Now, putting it all together, before we jump into the platform, just kind of want to again give you a good a picture of how to best make this happen, right? So first of all, you want to be able to understand the structure of the MITRE ATTCK framework, right? So go to the website, check out the different techniques and associations to threat actors. The website is attack.mitre.org. However, that's not the only resource, right? There's other resources out there that you can leverage that contain useful information that would help you to understand the framework itself. Another resource that's available to you is our Attack IQ Academy. We have courses covering anywhere from purple teaming concepts all the way down to actually implementing the MITRE ATTCK framework, and courses for practitioners as well as executive leadership that allow them to kind of get a better picture of how to best operate within this framework and how to use threat intelligence and informed defense to craft your responses. So you want to be able to find and research adversary behaviors, right? So look at OSINT tools, vendor research, look up your industry and what actors might be targeting that, and kind of base your approach that way. After that, you want to be able to translate behavior into tactics and objectives. So mapping out the techniques so if the technique or the tactic is credential access, what are the common techniques used to achieve credential access? What are the common tactics and techniques used for exfiltration, command and control, and etc. So focus on a tactic and technique when you're trying to research these groups and that affect your industry. So again, kind of you want to be able to map out to your current operating environment and systems, such as if you Windows shop or you're in, you have our infrastructure in the cloud, such as Azure, Google, or AWS. You want to be able to see, hey, maybe these threat actors focus on techniques that leverage user creation in cloud accounts, for example, or stealing S3 bucket information, that sort of thing. So you want to be able to kind of inventory your operating environment and technologies, so you're able to, essentially what I said before is you don't want to focus on techniques and tactics that do not apply to you. You want to be able to align those two together. So once that is done, obviously you want to be able to test the technique against your environment and assess the control, right? So did my what was it successful? Once you execute that, analyze the detection and prevention. Was the attack scenario successful? If not, was it detected? So you can have ways to analyze the results and take corrective actions, right? So you make improvements and then control and retest, right? So you want to be able to incrementally improve the security posture based on the results that you have. So kind of moving on before we jump into the platform here, I do want to give you, since we're using Attack IQ to demo this, this idea of implementing and operationalizing MITRE ATTACK framework, right? So we were going to use Attack IQ in this instance, and to just give you a quick idea what we're doing here, we are testing one technique and a intrusion set of techniques. So we're using the Attack IQ console, as well as detection and event telemetry based on the integration manager that's going to be communicating with both our SIM and the technology stack, right? So we're going to execute a technique simulation, but want to be able to say what are my controls detecting or preventing, and we're going to be using that. We're going to be doing that by using your test point agents, which are your assets that we have configured with our agent installed in order to execute those. With that being said, I will kind of jump into the platform and focus on leveraging a specific sub-technique. In this case, it's going to be T10003. And all I did in this instance, I just looked it up, right? So if you know the technique that you want to test against, simply search that in the bar here. So we're in the platform and looking for that. So what I'm looking for specifically is, since I know my operating environment, it might be vulnerable to DC sync attacks, I'm going to leverage this, right? So if I were to click details, this is the scenario in the Attack IQ platform that I'm going to execute to test that control, right? So in the description scenario here, we'll show you what the actual, what's actually going to happen in this scenario, for example. And I can also go to the parameters if I wanted to customize a scenario based on additional parameters that I need to take into account in order to execute a test, whether maybe I want to use an original Mimikatz, or maybe something more advanced such as undetectable Mimikatz. If it really depends on what you're trying to test here. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and execute a DC sync attack with undetectable Mimikatz. What we're going to do here is that we're going to load that in an assessment, which I already did. So to show you the steps of how that's done, is I'm going to pivot into the next tab here. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to show you what happens and how you actually load that scenario in an assessment, right? So what we're going to do right here is create a new assessment. We're going to choose create custom. What happens here next is, actually we're going to look up that scenario, whether you want to look it by name or do you want to look it by the T code. So if I do click the plus sign here, we're going to add a scenario. Again, you can look at you can search these atomic scenarios using the T codes or just by name. In that case, we're just going to do 10003, and we know it's 10003.006. Again, this is the DC sync attack. I would select this, add scenario. So we added the scenario that has that. Click done. The next step here is that we're going to select the targets that we want to test against. So if this is a endpoint computing system, if your agents are installed in your environment, we could pick them here from the setup page. So what happens is that we're going to be able to choose whatever workstation that has those agents installed, and we can choose one or multiple ones if you wanted to test different configurations of endpoint computing systems. In our case, we're just going to focus on one, right? So we're going to focus there, click apply. Once that is done, you click continue and you simply run it. I did just run this previously, so I kind of want to show you what that looks like with the end results, right? So this is it, APT29 credential access technique. You could see that we ran this assessment that has just the one scenario, undetectable Mimikatz for credential harvesting. And so we get a result, right? So we get a result of 100, right? So 100 meaning not prevented, but it was detected. So to me right here, it indicates a configuration issue that I need to go back to and rectify. Specifically, it would be my CrowdStrike endpoint security solution that I need to take a look at. To give you more to give you more depth here, we can take a look at the actual scenario that run and give you more detailed results on the technical level. Right. So you could see here on the latest run of today, we see that this attack scenario was not prevented. However, it was detected by our CrowdStrike Falcon solution. So we could take a look at this scenario results in further detail, right? We were able to see that we were able to gather a user and the redacted password. And if I further scroll down here on the details, this gives you a step-by-step storyline of what actually happened when we ran this scenario, right? So essentially what happened is, it was successfully executed undetectable Mimikatz, and we have a result here, right? So we're able to extract the username. So we deem this attack scenario as successful. It was not prevented. However, we do see some detections that we need to take a look at. And that, again, that indicates to me that there might be a possible configuration issue that it's letting other typical Mimikatz to run and harvest those credentials. In Attack IQ, we do have mitigation recommendations as well. So we're able to tell you how to mitigate this security gap. And that way you can test it again and validate that your security controls are working properly. Now, again, kind of focusing here on a specific tactic and the mitigations for this, what I want to do next is kind of scale that up and using the MITRE Navigator layers. But to kind of give you an idea of what detection details look like, we can query the CrowdStrike console directly and kind of retrieve those logs, right? So retrieve those that type of information. And if I wanted to, I can click the link on the more info and be able to actually log into my CrowdStrike platform and see what actually happened there. So again, to give you that end-to-end validation of my detections for the specific scenarios that were ran that indicate, even though the scenario was not prevented, at least I have something that I can go back to and try to mitigate by policy, if I should say that. All right. So the next step here is to obviously scale our approach here, right? So we went from a threat actor. We looked at the tactics that were employed, which in this case were credential access by APT29, and we drilled down to specific technique that was directly associated with my operating environment, right? So again, speaking to making sure that the techniques that are being used by a threat actor that you're tracking, have techniques that are associated with the operating systems that you're running. So in this case, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to the MITRE ATT&CK website and look up a specific threat actor. So in this case, since I'm in the groups section of this MITRE ATT&CK website, I find that Fin4 is actually targeting my organization. If I pretend that I'm in a financial company and I've seen Fin4 mention around that this group is actually targeting our industry. So I want to be able to take the commonly used techniques by Fin4, implement them in the platform, and then run an assessment, right? So the way to do that, again, because we're expanding our footprint here, is that we're going to be able to use the attack navigator layers, right? So if I click view, that'll open up another tab. And what I'm seeing right here is essentially a mapping of techniques that are used by this threat actor in particular, Fin4. The cool thing about this Navigator layers capability from the MITRE ATT&CK website is that you can download the techniques, the grouping of techniques as a JSON file, and then you can upload them in Attack IQ and be able to run scenarios that directly map to these techniques, right? One tip that I would suggest is that you restrict the techniques to the environments that you're operating. Again, if I were to click the filter icon here that's found here, you have various platforms that you can select. I'm focusing on Windows because that's my environment. but you could use Linux, Macs, or a combination of both of those platforms if you wanted to. But I'm just focusing on Windows. Once you filter your techniques by that operating system or platform, the next step here is simply download the JSON file that contains all the tactics. And now we're going to be able to upload that in the platform. Now, if you're logged in the platform right now, you'll see a little cloud icon here on the bottom right side of the screen. And what you would do in this case is simply click that button, and then a window will pop up asking you to upload the template or MITRE Navigator layers, right? So that's just the JSON file that we downloaded. If I click the button here, I can choose the JSON file that I just downloaded. I did that already, so I want to show you what that looks like. But essentially, you open that up, right? It's going to load that in the platform, and you can import that template. Now, again, I already did that for you, and I'll just navigate back to my assessments to show you what that looks like. So once you upload that, it'll essentially live here on your assessments list. And if you click that, you'll see that we haven't run this assessment yet because we just uploaded it, but you could see the setup, right? Now, if you do this Navigator import capability, you may get some tests that require further configuration, and that really depends on the scenario that you're running. So if you're targeting, for example, domain controllers or other types of systems, it might ask you for some additional input from your side. So maybe an IP address, maybe a username, in order to that scenario to work. However, I did a little bit of cleanup. I erased some scenarios that don't really pertain to my environment. So I went ahead and configured some of the scenarios that needed more input from my technical inputs that I need to add to these scenarios in order for them to work. So now we get a nice list of tests that I will be running and the scenarios within those tests. So for example, for command and control, I'm testing one asset and it's got 21 scenarios. Our execution has 88 scenarios. So this is, again, a way to expand the scope of the tactics and techniques that you want to test against as it pertains to actors that directly might be in targeting you or your industry. Now, if I scroll down, the next step that you would the next step here would be to add the assets that you want to test against. Again, this is really up to you, but in my case, I just want to test one policy for my current CrowdStrike endpoint security. So I just selected that. I clicked apply. And after this, I click continue. And I simply just run it, right? So kind of to summarize what we just did, kind of give you a little bit of information about what the MITRE ATT&CK framework is, how you can leverage it in a smart way by using, threat-informed defense, using, readily available open source information that you can leverage out there in the form of blogs, research. But if you want to get started, the MITRE ATT&CK website itself is a great resource to get that going. What we did also is, kind of give you an overview of our architecture, how we're able to both, kick off attack scenarios based on specific techniques and tactics that we want to test, as well as kind of give you an overview of how you were able to detect this activity based on the technologies that you currently use, as well as other integrations such as a SIEM or direct integration with your endpoint security. Or in the case of firewalls, we also have those integrations available as well. Finally, we executed a simple tactic to show you how easy it is to invoke those tests based on the mappings that you already did when you're doing your research, as well as using the MITRE ATT&CK Navigator layers to get to ingest intrusion sets in general that contain a variety of tactics and techniques that threat actors might use against you and your organization and be able to test those at the same time. So you don't have to test these one by one. You could do them at scale and more efficiently. So with that being said, I will close our session here. Thank you for attending our course, our demo, and I'll pass it back to Madison.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you so much, everybody, again for coming out today. And we hope that you enjoyed the presentation. As always, please reach out if you have any questions, and we will see you next week. Have a great one. Thank you.